Sam had tried everything in his power to switch around his Friday night shift. He was desperate to take his new girlfriend Debbie to the movies, and instead, he was going to be driving all over town, delivering pizza to people having a lot more fun than him and tipping pennies on the dollar. The Friday shift was the worst shift, and that's why no one would swap him. His hot date was canceled and replaced with greasy boxes of pepperoni delight, his dad's old station wagon, and an Aerosmith CD that always skipped on track 10. But at least it paid. He'd make it up to Debbie next week. The evening was steady and passing relatively quickly. He ran a family dinner special over to the McIntyres. Big house, good tippers. Then 5 cheese pizzas and garlic bread over to a slumber party on the east side of town. Cute girls. Bad tippers. Next, a calzone and a liter of Pepsi to Mr. Johnson on 4th. Finishing up the night with chicken wings and a personal pie to his 7th period math teacher. Awkward. It was nearly closing time when Sam got one last call from the pizza parlor.
Last minute order, Sam. Can you head back this way?
Oh, Roz, I thought we weren't taking orders after 11 anymore.
Sam, it's a Friday night. We stopped taking orders when the orders stopped coming in. Get your ass back here.
This order was huge. 2 veggie supremes, 3 pepperonis, 1 meat feast, 2 cheeses, 1 pineapple and ham. Yuck. And 4 boxes of wings, wedges, chicken tenders, and mozzarella sticks. Carefully, Sam loaded the order into the back of the wagon. Where am I headed to, Roz? Lovejoy Street. You can't miss it. It's that old church that turned into a funeral home and is now a museum or something. I don't know. They say it's haunted. Haunted? Sam asked. By who? By a scrawny, pimple-faced teenager who didn't deliver their pizzas on time, that's who. Get moving before that food gets cold. As Sam sped away from the pizza parlor and his insufferable boss, he had one thing on his mind. And it wasn't the supposedly haunted church, funeral home, museum, but rather its location. Debbie lived off Lovejoy Street. If he was quick, he might be able to catch her for a kiss before bed. Pushing the speed limit, Sam zoomed across town. Windows down, music blaring, pizza jostling in the backseat. He certainly couldn't miss the building. 998 Lovejoy Street looked exactly like Ross had described. A church, come funeral home, come museum. A beautiful old red brick and white wood church lit up orange in the night, with a big sign outside reading, Iron Island Museum. As Sam slowed and turned into the parking lot, a flash of pink and blonde darted across the front of the station wagon. A little girl had bolted right in front of his car. He slammed the brakes, tires squealing, and threw the car in park. He unbuckled and got out of the vehicle. Did he hit her? Where was she? Why was she out at this time of night? He searched the empty lot and eventually came back to the car and parked it in a bay. Sam opened up the back door to retrieve the pizzas that had now slid from their once neat stack. A few wedges were on the footwell, but after a little dust, he popped them back in the box. After all, what the eyes couldn't see, the heart couldn't grieve. With his pizzas and side dishes stacked high, he carefully made his way to the museum entrance. A woman greeted him at the door. "I heard you coming," she said as she handed him a handful of folded bills. "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. I think. I don't know, I think I saw someone in your parking lot." "We're decorating for Halloween. Was it museum staff?" "No, I could have sworn it was a little girl." "A little girl?" the woman repeated with wide eyes. "Yeah, she came right in front of my car." Sam was shaking. "Do you want to come in for a minute? I do believe you. You see, you aren't the first person to have seen a child running across the property, but you didn't actually see a child. Well, not a living one, anyways." Sam's head was swimming. No way was he going into that building. He was getting off of this property ASAP. "Nah, I'm good, thanks," Sam said as he began to head back to his car. He made it as far as the lawn before he sprinted to the safety of the wagon. As fast as he could, he threw the old girl in reverse and maneuvered his way out of the parking lot. But before he pulled onto Lovejoy Street, he dared a peek in his rearview mirror. There, in the parking lot, about 20 yards away from the back of his car, stood a little blonde girl, dressed in a frilly pink frock, smiling and waving at him. Do you ever lie awake in bed at night and wonder, what is happening in the West London Witch Patreon? Are you plagued by the feeling that you're missing out? Do you want more content and a sneaky look into the inner workings of the West London Witch? Well, I just wanted to pop in and say that joining Patreon is super easy and affordable. I am very aware that we are deep in a cost of living crisis. So for as little as $1, €1, £1 a month, you can unlock the entire West London Witch Patreon and gain access to loads of additional content that you will never experience here on the main show. Patreon is a place where I share extra special interviews, behind-the-scenes stories and gossip, and answer your questions. And in return, you're also helping support the show as we work to share with you the best storytelling at the highest studio quality. So come join us at patreon.com/The West London Witch. Hello and welcome to episode 68 of The West London Witch, a podcast where we share stories about those moments where we find ourselves very much not alone. In the city of Buffalo, New York, stands the historic Iron Island Museum. Circa 1883, this once church-turned-funeral home has now been lovingly and beautifully converted into a neighborhood museum, displaying a lot more than just artifacts and exhibits. The Iron Island Museum is touted as one of the most haunted locations in New York, and after today's episode, I have no doubt that you will agree. Today, Marge and Lorraine have joined us to share the rich history and haunts of Iron Island. Prepare yourself for shadow people, departed children, and chilling EVPs as we roam the undeniably spooky space that is the Iron Island Museum. I'm Rebecca Strazina, and this is The West London Witch, episode 68, Inside Iron Island.
The museum, the building is from 1883. It was a church, and then it was a funeral home in the 1950s. So in year 2000, Mr. Anthony Amagon owned this building, and he has tons of funeral homes around the area, and he didn't need this one anymore. So he saw an article in the Buffalo News about the work our Preservation Society was doing in the neighborhood, and he called and asked if we wanted his building for our museum. We had a small storefront down the street, and was only a few artifacts, so when he offered the building to us, we accepted.
This is Marge. In August 2000, Marge, her daughter Linda, and her friend Rose took over the building. By October, it was up and running as a community museum. To celebrate the museum's opening, Marge threw a big party. The Amigon family, the previous owners of the funeral home cum museum, even attended to commemorate the new life of the building.
They never said anything about the place being haunted, but when things started happening to us, we contacted the original funeral director who used to live in an apartment in the back of the building, and they said they had a few happenings or scary type things happening to them while they were living here.
Marge never considered the paranormal would become a part of the fabric of the museum. She just wanted a place to preserve and display history. The building had been a church and a funeral home, so it wasn't totally inconceivable that there could be some spirits still lurking about.
When I first came in to fix the place up, I was standing in the front hall and I was looking around and I thought to myself, where am I going to start? Now, this is a huge building and I felt a presence around me. I didn't know what it was, but I kept coming in anyway because I had to.
When the building was a funeral home, there were 3 viewing rooms. Now those spaces are exhibition rooms within the museum. The first viewing room is called the Railroad Room because it focuses on the area's rich history in the locomotive trade. However, it also goes by a second name.
Now it's called the Children's Room also because there's so much children activity in that room.
There is a very good reason why the Railroad Room has a lot of child activity in it. Marge found the funeral home's records from the 1960s in an old filing cabinet in the basement, and it was revealed that many children had been laid out for their final viewing in that room.
Now, the second room is now the military room. We have uniforms from all wars dating back to even the Civil War. I had a little boy who passed away at 6.5 with pneumonia, and he was laid out in the room, which we now call the military room. So we almost hesitated taking the building over because of that. But we figure we're supposed to be here. And when we had the ghost hunter show here, they said that presence I felt around me when I first came in was Jimmy's spirit, which comes with me and goes home with me. And so I was sort of comfortable with that, but not completely. And my daughter, Linda, is president of the group, so she was a little uncomfortable about it, too. So the third room, we call it the chapel room now. We have a huge altar in there that was not from this church. It's from another church that was a few blocks from here.
The altar came into possession by the museum when the lady who owned the church it had resided in came to Marge and asked for help. She was struggling with her neighbors who wanted the little 1896 clapboard church demolished. She told Marge that if she helped her save the church, she could have the altar to preserve and display in the museum. The building was saved. The altar was relocated. But that wasn't the end of the story.
A few weeks after we had everything installed, someone burned that church in an arson fire. So the church is gone. The altar was not in the fire. But people walk up to it and they smell smoke or fire before I even tell about it on the tour.
Of course, it's not just visitors who experience strange things in the museum. The staff are constantly having interactions with the other side. Here, Lorraine tells us a little bit more about some of her experiences in the chapel room.
I've only seen one full body apparition, and it was in the chapel room. And it happened so fast. I saw it was in the dark, but this ghost was like a white see-through, right? And heading toward the ladder room. We heard knocks on the chapel, on the altar. So we also have a gift shop in the chapel room. And for some reason, by the t-shirts along this wall here, we pick up many children, pick up many EVPs of children in that spot. And this one EVP is like my absolutely favorite is when I picked up two boys. And I definitely think one of them is like 5 years old and the other is maybe like 7. And out of the blue, this kid just yells, "Puppies, puppies, puppies." Then you hear a smaller voice and he says, "Puppies, puppies, come." Just the sweetest. They have the sweetest voices. I don't know who they are. They never tell us their names, really. And it's so beautiful. And it's also makes your mind go, how is this happening? Because we're in this museum at night and there's no children here.
Have a listen to this EVP and see if you can hear puppies, 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 puppies come. The children's spirits of Iron Island are so infamous that they have caught the curiosity of TV shows such as Ghost Hunters, Ghost Lab, and My Ghost Story. After the museum was featured on major TV programs, floods of guests flowed through the doors of the museum, eager to have their own experiences. Psychics from all over the world have come to visit the museum and check out the activity for themselves. And interestingly enough, several of the children's spirits that have come forward have actually been proven to be connected to actual children who were once laid out to rest in the funeral home.
The first people who were here, they picked up 2 little children's spirits in that room. And one little boy's spirit they picked up, his name was Tommy. So we have a model of the Titanic in our someone generously gave to us. And they had a piece of equipment with a red light on it. And they placed that piece of equipment by our model of the Titanic. And they said, "Tommy, would you talk into the red light?" Well, the first voice they ever got on their recorder was a little boy's voice saying "Bolt." So the night after our show of Ghost Hunters were on, over 100 people came through the door. And we weren't quite ready for them, but we got ready in a hurry. We didn't know so many people were interested in the paranormal, and we've been basically busy ever since. So one of the men who came through the door said, "I had a little cousin named Tommy. Tommy was laid out in this room, and Tommy always liked boats. He says his father used to take him fishing all the time." We actually found Tommy's record, same last name as this man. We have this picture. We have the fact he was laid out in this room. So we're able to confirm one of our children's spirits. Then when that psychic from Atlanta was here, he was walking around the rooms with Linda. He was here 4 times. First time he was here, he was walking around with Linda and he came in the children's room. He says, "There's a little boy named Richard in here, and Richard died of drowning." We checked our records and we found a Richard who had died of drowning who was laid out in this room. We used to do overnights where people stayed overnight, but they can now only come in from 7 at night till 1 in the morning for an investigation. So one night, a group of the older Girl Scouts were staying overnight. And we have a guide stay with you. And the guide was walking around the rooms with the Girl Scout. And she came to the children's room and she was telling them about Richard, and she had her recorder going. And later she checked her recorder and she got a little boy's voice that says, "Oh boy, I'm drowning." Well, Richard died of drowning in his bathtub. He had a condition that caused seizures and he drowned in his bathtub. So we have Richard's voice, we have his picture, his dad brought his picture in. And we have his record. Another one of those 100 people who came through the door, he said, "I used to live across the street." He says, "I'd look out my window, I'd see a little boy running back and forth, back and forth." He says, it happened so many times that I called the police. The police came, there was no little boy. He said, occasionally he'd even sit on your steps. Our records show that Richard had only lived a few houses down from our museum. So we figured Richard's spirit was going home and coming back to the last place he had been.
I think the residential spirits are very comfortable with us because they know we're here to keep this building open and preserve it, and we treat them with respect.
The residential spirits must like the museum staff because they even greet them. Check out this EVP where you can hear a little child say, "Hi, Lorraine."
We have tours usually every Thursday from 6:30 until, let's say, 8 to 8:30. And after tours, we'd close up, we'd turn off the lights, and we would just hang out and investigate, just us. And nothing too serious. We'd have our recorder going, we have our routine, but nothing serious at all. But 9 times out of 10, we would collect these amazing EVPs. I think better than any TV show I've heard. Clear, all the way from small children to elderly adults. And we actually have some that speak in foreign languages.
Lorraine is a fabulous investigator, and some of the EVPs she has collected are fantastic. Have a listen to this EVP of a child saying, "Will she go on the train?" In the same vein, have a listen to this child saying, "I'm going on a train."
Are you going on a train ride?
These are great EVPs because they are not only connected to the children's spirits, but also the railroad that the museum finds itself situated among.
When we moved into the building, now there were 3 women that took over an old funeral home, and we were all chickens. And we went to the basement, which is kind of scary in itself. And there was a room there, and we opened the door, and it turned out to be an old bathroom, and the parts of the sink and the toilet were still in there. We looked above, and there was a shelf. And the shelf contained 24 cans of cremated remains. And they were just in little paint cans. And the names and dates of deaths were on the cans. So we kept a list of the names and dates of death and put it in our desk drawer. Well, they were not from Mr. Amagon. They were from the original funeral director. And they were left there for various reasons.
The ladies kept the cremains for safekeeping. But it did trouble them that these people had not been properly laid to rest. But they didn't exactly know who they were or why they had been left behind. However, an unexpected connection was made when a TV show featuring psychic medium Chip Coffey came to investigate the museum.
Well, we had someone here named Chip Coffey, who's a psychic medium from Atlanta, Georgia. And there's talk of an angry man in our attic. Now we're going from the basement to the attic. And we had young men here, and they put their recorder up there, and they got a voice that said, "Die now," and other activity in the attic area. It's not an attic, though. It's a huge cathedral ceiling of the church, the ceilings were lowered, and you look up and you see this beautiful part of the original church. So this Chip Coffey went up the ladder, and he says the angry man in the attic, his name was an E. He came down the ladder. He says his name is Edgar. So a little while later, we checked our list, and we found an Edgar. Linda checked all the names and found out Edgar and 7 others were veterans. So she made arrangements to give them all a proper burial.
Thanks to Linda's research, finally, 7 of these remains had names and were going to have a hero send-off. Mr. Amagon donated 7 beautiful urns. A wake was held for the veterans at the museum, Then a beautiful procession of museum staff, townsfolk, and over 100 Patriot Guard riders headed to the Bath National Cemetery for a proper military funeral.
So we figure we were supposed to be here. One of the reasons is to take care of those remains. The other one is we say the altar, and the other one is we talk about the children.
In all my research, I have never come upon a story quite like this. What a beautiful intersection of mediumship, research, and community goodwill. I agree with Marge that they were meant to help those soldiers receive the burial that they deserved. However, Iron Island isn't all children playing and soldiers seeking closure. There are happenings in the museum that are darker, sinister, and frightening.
One day, this was early when I was fixing up the building, and I was in the front room, the children's room or railroad room. And I was working on the scrapbooks, and I looked to my right, and there was a full-size figure of a man there, and I find out later they call them shadow people. He was very tall. He was all in black. He had a big hat on like ministers used to wear. It was a wide brim, and he had red eyes, and he was looking right at me. And the eyes were like burning coals, and he looked angry. And I thought, I hope he's not angry at me. I didn't do anything. But I didn't stick around to find out. I went home early that day.
The next day, Marge gathered the team and told them what she had seen. And it turns out that she hadn't been the only one to experience unexplainable activity in the museum.
Well, then everybody started sharing their stories that when they were here, pictures were falling off the walls or loud sounds, they were picking up. And I thought it might have been from when it was a church. Like maybe it had been a pastor from the past and he was mad that we were here or something, messing up his church or whatever. So we try and put two and two together of why these things are happening, but I could never figure out why he was so angry or why he was even there. One day we had a radio program doing their programming, and they had all their equipment set up in the chapel room. And Linda was in the front room checking our surveillance cameras. And I came around the corner to see what she was doing, and two pictures exploded off the desk that we had in the children's room. One picture flew off, the larger one, and landed on the floor in front of the desk. The other one flew off to the side and landed on the floor, and the glass broke. So we were able to capture that on our surveillance camera. But at the time, we didn't know how to save it. But we saved it enough to show the people who were doing the radio show. And they talked about it on the radio. And when the show was over, they closed everything up and got out of here. And I haven't seen any of them since.
The scary stories don't stop there. Because although it's frightening to see pictures be thrown across the room, that pales in comparison to the other horrors that Marge has seen in the museum.
Now Linda has always had beagle puppies. She only usually had one at a time. So the one she used to bring in, her name was Hazel. Hazel was very receptive to the spirits. And she'd go in front of each room and she'd be barking like crazy. So one day, Linda was sitting at the desk in the office. Now we have a very long hallway with the 3 rooms off. I was in the children's room, and I was dusting off the cabinet way in the back. And Hazel was by the front door of that room, and she was barking like crazy, and she was on all fours. And I heard the front door open. So I turned to go see what's happening, to see who came in. And I was standing by the doorway between the room and the hallway, and Hazel stopped barking. And I heard someone say, "That's okay, honey. like something was petting her and calmed the dog down. So all of a sudden, I felt something go through me. And I turned like this a little bit to my left, and there was a woman there. And she was in what you call a jumper. I don't know if you know what a jumper is. And she had like a shirt on underneath it, like a tan-colored shirt. And the jumper was like not navy blue, not powder blue, but somewhere in between. All flowers on, white flowers, all over, like the Hawaiian flower, I think they call it plumeria. Her head was like a shrunken head. And so Linda captured it on camera, our reactions. She captured the dog's reaction and my reaction. So I don't usually tell this because I don't want people to think I'm crazy. I usually don't tell it on the tour. So one day I'm given a tour and we're in the military room and a woman was sitting on the edge of one of the chairs. And she kept looking towards the children's room. And I says, what's going on? She says, I did an overnight here. I saw a woman in the children's room. And I says, what did she look like? And she described that woman exactly like I had seen.
It is super important to Marge that the children who were laid out in the once funeral home are still respected and remembered. Her own son, Jimmy, is counted among many of those children.
So we have a display case in our long hall with my son Nathan, with his picture and some of the things that we had saved. And I know this may sound weird to some people, but it's just because he had been laid out here and that. So one day, a lot of things seemed to happen when Linda and I were here alone. Linda had come in after work, and I was sitting at the desk facing the hallway. And Linda came in, and she was standing over to the side of the desk, but at the front of it. And she was facing me. And I looked out in the hallway, and I saw this awful thing coming out of the chapel room. It was walking. It was like a big blob thing. And it was walking like a T-Rex and had little short arms. But the arms, the hands and feet were round and shaped like tennis balls, that size. And the head was round like a ball, but only like what would you call, like a soccer ball, with that size, but no features. And it was going towards Jimmy's case. And all I could think of, that it was going to hurt one of my children. It couldn't hurt Jimmy because he had passed away. But then it looked like it was going to turn toward Linda, who was in the office, which is only a little bit away from the where it was. And she saw the reaction on my face. And she ran to her office chair and she sat there. She says, Ma, what happened? And I told her. And then the thing went away. So it didn't come as far as the office. But I was frozen in that chair for, I would say, at least 15 minutes. I couldn't move. Finally, we got up to go home. I had that frozen feeling for at least 3 hours afterward. I couldn't get that feeling out of my system.
Marge is confident in her convictions and feelings about the building, but those feelings are not necessarily universally shared.
Someone was hearing, they said, oh, there's no evil in this building. And I don't like to think there is because it's so beautiful and we love it so much. And I wish you could see it. People love it here. And I said, as far as I'm concerned, there is evil and no, it's too evil.
I have not experienced anything like you have. There's something about Marge that she's very sensitive. Every time I'm with her, like she catches things out of the side of her eye, like earlier, and I see her reaction. I don't see it, and I'm a little jealous. But she sees a lot. She experiences a lot, and there's definitely something with Marge's energy, and as well with Linda. When Linda was coming and she came and hung out with us, we would 9 times out of 10 get activity when Linda was around. I feel like they could care about me. Sometimes they don't. Every once in a while, I'll get activity when I'm by myself here, but nothing negative. The only thing negative I can come up with is down in the basement. We have been told by a couple psychics that there is like a negative energy toward the corner about with a man. And I've never experienced it. I've told people about it. People have taken pictures of it, but I'm down in the basement. It doesn't scare me whatsoever. But one time, it was during COVID, we're downstairs investigating, and I did get an EVP of a man in that corner. And he says, "I'll get you. I'll get you." And I felt so offended. And it made me upset. I'm like, who are you? Who are you? You know, come and get me then. You know, I don't know if he actually belonged to the museum. I don't think he was part of our residential spirits here. But other than that, I have not had a negative experience like Marge has had.
Have a listen to this EVP Lorraine captured that says, "I'll get you. I'll get you."
There's a portal right here. Do people come in and out right here? Do people come in and out right here?
All I know is Iron Island Museum is so rich in history, either from the church and a funeral home and probably combined. But there's definitely something here. And like I said, I have been here since 2008, and I have experienced so many things, and I'm so lucky to have witnessed it. I truly believe that the residential spirits, as we call them, would never do anything to harm us or scare us. I feel very comfortable here with them. And we do put a lot of love into this place, and we do make it a family-oriented experience for people to come in. So, you know, we don't price gouge at all. We make sure it's easily accessible and affordable for people to come. This place is such a beautiful gem. It's hauntingly charming. It's got so much history. And I feel so privileged to be able to experience it and be here. It's just a beautiful location.
So who or what is haunting the museum? There are definitely carryovers from the funeral home and perhaps even the church. But of course, there may also be connections to the variety of artifacts that are displayed in the museum. There could be spirits connected to the individual items. And even though there have been scary and distressing experiences at Iron Island, overwhelmingly, this is a place of light and honor, a place of peace and preservation. It seems kismet that Marge, Linda, and Rose would take over the building and turn it into a community space where history could be maintained and shared. I find Marge's strength to not only work in a space that does hold sad personal memories, but to actually love that space and turn it into such a beautiful place of joy is nothing short of remarkable. I have such adoration for the work that Marge and Lorraine do at the museum. If you're in New York, I urge you to make your way over for a visit. Lorraine took me on a virtual tour, and as beautiful and well thought out as the museum is, it definitely has a very spooky feel to it. I would love to do an overnight investigation at the museum, and I am in awe of how affordable their overnights are. The ethos at Iron Island really is accessibility for all. And that is truly special. Major thank you to Lorraine for setting up this interview and for sharing her wealth of knowledge and EVPs with us. If you'd like to find out more about Iron Island Museum, check out their Facebook and website at ironislandmuseum.com. Lorraine, Marge, and myself chatted for over 2 hours. There was no way I could share all of their stories in one episode. So be sure to head on over to the West London Witch Patreon for more stories from inside the incredible Iron Island Museum. Do you have a spooky story you'd like to share? I'd love to hear it. Drop me an email at thewestlondonwitch@gmail.com or find us on Instagram and Facebook at The West London Witch. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. And come and follow us for additional content on Instagram and Facebook. Until next time, merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. The West London Witch is created by me, Rebecca Struzina. Our sound designer and production magician is the incredible Danny Cross. Our theme music was bespokely written and performed by the wickedly talented Kyle Hall. Our cover art is the beautiful collaboration between Lizzie Wilson and Jake Bowser. Special thanks to Miss Sinead Bowers, our quality control and biggest cheerleader. And thank you to you, all of our listeners all over the world. These are your stories. Thank you for sharing them with us.